Good afternoon, everyone. Another freeze event penetrates deep into Europe, down into the Mediterranean. These fronts are only about 700 to 1,000 miles wide, driving 60 mile per hour winds on all sides of the front as it pushes through. Electrical activity is something to behold. Persons in Europe across the chat boards are frightened by how electrically charged the atmosphere is. 65,000 lightning strikes over the last 2 days along the Mediterranean. Just across Italy, large clusters, half-mile wide waterspouts coming down. Something that looks more like it would be coming out of Texas. Supercell fronts rolling over major metropolitan areas. Tornadoes coming down in city centers. And you have to ask yourself, can we predict, will this increase in intensity, yes or no? And the answer is absolutely yes. It's all based on the height of the troposphere and the amount of charged particles coming through the Birkeland currents onto our poles. An active sun, we get into these zonal jet streams, which keeps everything more locked in place. More ozone at the stratosphere, meaning less ozone at the mesosphere, so the weather surrounding both poles is more stable. But when we come into an inactive sun, troposphere rises along the equator, slams down on the poles, and starts sending these oscillation patterns through in a very short wavelength. As the electric current density increases due to our weakened magnetosphere, you can expect that all the other circulating cloud masses from the equator to the poles are going to shift as well. Currently, I believe we're right in the center here. We're going from that longer duration wavelength something into the very short wavelength. You're starting to see cyclones at the poles lasting 3 weeks in the North Pole, breaking up the ice, sending all these icebergs south. The weather fronts are becoming more compressed but more ferocious as they dip even further south. And now the aurora are incredibly charged. They're changing color spectrum into the purple, blues, and whites. Taking a look at the Birkeland currents and how the energetic particles flow to our poles, this red aurora, intense, but the blues are double the height above that. We're going to start to see these blues more often, and when this happens, the electrical charge in our atmosphere is going to resemble something like this, and you will understand clearly why the ancient built these dolmens. Our modern society, we live in homes with electrical cable running through it. They were trying to hide out in stone structures to avoid the plasma discharges that were happening on the top of the planet. This is in all petroglyphs. They saw the same things in the skies, and we're about to see it again. And for those of you who have been following my channel for the last couple of years, I just had a great conversation with Lee Wheelbarger. It wraps up my entire 2 years of research along with a timeline and how Lee also sees the electrical nature of our star affecting the Earth and how our weather is going to change so drastically over the next few years. Everything you ever wanted to know, plus the timeline, how it works, and what the effects are going to be, are wrapped up in this 2.5-hour talk that we did. This will absolutely explain everything and give you a very, very clear picture of what to expect. Mini Ice Age Conversations, episode number 19 on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. I'll be loading that on SoundCloud later today. And as you're watching the video, please remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030. Yet another deep penetrating Arctic low, out of season, incredibly powerful winds. Today's radar loop, anywhere red or along the blue line, is where they're having, again, tornadoes and supercells. Wind gusts over 120 kilometers per hour all through the mountains of France, Austria, Italy, anywhere with high altitudes. And then the lower plains areas are receiving 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. You can see how these very short wavelength fronts that are only 1,000 miles wide just to have that incredible punch to them with wind. 25 meters a second on the chart was 55 miles per hour, and they're getting over 30 meters per second. Quick look into severe weather EU, intense snowfall in Croatia, blizzard conditions across central Italy, severe hailstorm in Spain, heavy snowfalls in Austria, tornado supercells in Italy, and it just keeps continuing. Anywhere you see color on this map, including white, is a supercell formation along with strong winds, hail, and snow. Just looking at the forecast right now, Northwest Spain looking at 110 kilometers per hour. That's borderline Category 1 hurricane. And then Iberia, torrential rainfalls, large hail. Hungary. And then in Austria, at least 60 mile per hour winds. Russia, large hail. Italy, large hail. Supercells, possible tornadoes. And then the Alpine flanks, where any of those backside of the mountains looking at least 50 centimeters. That's almost 2 feet of snow this late in the season. Radar loop here, you can actually see how those purples are being pulled down into Central and Eastern Europe from the Arctic. Along with these colliding hot and cold air masses, the electrical friction is just unprecedented. The amount of plasma discharge, not even lightning, it's going into the purple ranges now. Blue, normal, but when you get into the purple and everything's a horizontal light, where is all this horizontal lightning coming from? At least half the photos I saw were horizontal lightning. And the sky is just charged. People can feel it in the air in their homes. Their hair is standing up. And this is inside a structure. You can imagine what it's like outside. And then you look over the last 2 days, 65,000 strikes at least. A bit closer in here for you. And since you see a lot of lightning strikes right along the coast of Italy there, let's zoom that in. Northern Italy, supercells, tornadoes, vortice winds, large hail, snow as well, blizzard conditions on the mountains. It's really unbelievable. All the events happening right now. Now everything you're seeing is just in the last 2 days. Central Italy, more lightning. And it's just picture after picture, this horizontal lightning coming across. And it's not just in the same area, it's a widespread area wherever you're seeing that entire frontal boundary, either the south to the west or to the east, it's all the same conditions. Now this was a shocker. This waterspout is over half a mile wide. If this was over land, this would definitely be something on the EF3 or EF4 scale. Northern Italy looks like something dropping out of a Texas or Kansas supercell that you would expect in the United States in the plains. But this is in Italy. Also, tornado or some kind of vortices dropped right into the center of this town. You can check out the video on severeweather.eu. Then you got the supercells rolling over the coastal areas as well. Greece, electric storms. Wide out here for you. This is an impressive shot right over the Acropolis. This is Texas. This is what you expect in the Plain States. Back to Bologna, Italy. Ferrara. Different images of different waterspouts coming down. And then today's electrical activity for you. It's still in the middle of the evening there, 3 a.m. So you know the convection is going to slow down at that point. But it's just been supercell after supercell. And all of this can be simply explained through the electrical interaction of the star to our planet. It's about the charged particles that are coming in through our magnetic field lines because of our decreased magnetosphere. There's more cosmic rays coming in as well. This electrical interaction. Now let test for you. Last sentence. When the sun is active, the energetic electron rain decreases ozone above the poles and the mesosphere. So when we go into an inactive sun, what happens over the poles? An increase, yes, you're correct, and it slams down. This is the active sun profile. The tropopause actually collapses a bit at the equator, and there's more expansion at the poles, which means our zonal jet streams lock in place. Now, the height of the tropopause is also variable depending on the electrical nature of our sun and how much charge is coming in on the 11-year solar maximum or solar minimum, or we're going into the 400, 1,500, or 8,000 year cycle with the electrical activity of the sun-Earth connection here. So you could expect that our jet stream is going to start to shift. There's going to be clouds, way more clouds. They're going to usher in heavier rains, heavier snows. Our jet streams are going to come into that really tight wave pattern. Look at what I mean by the oscillation of the low pressure versus high pressure. We're going into the negative phase, but this negative phase is nothing like we've experienced in our current lifetimes or even your grandparents. So keep an eye on the poles. That's where you need to see how this energy enters our planet first. So when our magnetosphere is nice and tight, everything stays in that formation. But now that everything is shifting, we're going into a phase shift. Our sun's going into a phase shift. We are presently entering into that center sine wave pattern, if you will, where before it was very locked in place. Now it's starting to undulate. Well, we're going to enter into that phase 3 with that really tight wavelength, and those dips are going to reach down to, say, 15 degrees north latitude, dragging with it polar air. Can you imagine banana trees getting exposed to Arctic air and then 70 or 80 mile per hour winds that are going to accompany this? It's going to strengthen. You just need to look at the different kind of cloud cells that pervade through the different latitudes. And once they sandwich down on the poles, everything needs to shift back. And you ask yourself, is it already happening? And well, let's just look at the pole here. This is the North Pole. Since literally April 1st, there's been a cyclonic low up there breaking the sea ice, sending an enormous amount of icebergs south. This high wave and high wind action is actually breaking up part of this North Pole ice. And then those of you on the global warming bandwagon are going to say, oh no, it's because the Arctic's melting. Hold on a second. Here's null school from today. You go back further, it was even colder a month ago. Still minus 12 up there. Nothing's melting, Greenland ice is gaining, and there's no way that all the icebergs are in a response to a melting Arctic. Jump back to this visual graphic here, and what do you see in Europe? That exact same pattern that's starting to tighten up in the wavelength. And then some food for thought. We start to see these petroglyphs with all types of electromagnetic waves. So you wonder, did they know something back then, or were they highly advanced that we do not give them credit for? I'll let you determine that on your own. A glimpse at the European temperatures today, and also a map of Europe so you can really see how thick this weather front is. Now it's starting to be dragged from the top, so it's actually bending sort of northeast now. But if you measure from, say, Norway down to Greece, you're still only looking at 800 miles. These weather fronts are going to get more and more compressed, but they're going to project themselves further south. So this is something you're going to need to look for, along with increased snows. Croatia yesterday. Blizzard conditions in northern Italy. It goes from this to that. Whiteout conditions in just a few seconds. Hail across Spain. Heavy snowfalls in Austria. Seems like the winter's back, and I'm wondering, with all the wind and all the snow and all the cold, with the crops that have already bloomed because of the early warmer spring, how many of those flowers do you think will survive on, say, the rapeseed plants or anything that's coming up out of the ground as a shoot right now? Poland, heavy snows. Again, the migrating birds all the way from Russia down to Poland just are stranded. German media reporting rare snows across München. Up in Marienburg, Czech Republic, northern Italy, it's a mix of snow, hail, and it's blowing 70 miles an hour up there. Norway, and it's all because of the inactive sun. So if this was one pattern of this particular anomaly, could we see it again somewhere? Have we seen it again? Yes. Let's just go back into the same areas in Europe on April 6th, 2 weeks ago. So what happened there with the same? This pattern was even tighter. This front was even shorter in duration than the one that has just come through, which is about double the thickness of this. What do we get? Serbia tornadoes, intense electrical activity, and over 90,000 lightning strikes, many of them in the same area, but you notice how compared to this storm front, it pushed much further south, right into the north tip of Africa. So as you can see, the shorter the wavelength and the more that penetrates further south in through the atmosphere, the electrical conductivity, most intense point is at the very tip of the storm, so you can see that it pushed further south, just where the lightning strikes were. Also, if you're keeping an eye on the grand solar minimum intensification, one area on the globe you want to take a look at is this area in Chamonix. The glaciers advanced during the mini ice age, so if there's earlier snows or later snows, this would be a perfect indication if it's intensifying in Europe as a single point of reference. Back to our energetic particles flowing in through the field lines on the Birkeland currents into the Earth's atmosphere. Another way for you to look at it here is when we get a solar storm, this is where the energetic particles come in. They're going to be over North America, over Europe, on the poles, also in the south. But we're starting to see this intense phase color change. Before, they were mostly green, a little bit of purple in there, but it's changed intensity and ramped up considerably. Blue is danger. White is danger. That is so highly charged. And just to give you a gauge of what I'm talking about, the greens, you see how low they are in the atmosphere? And then you suddenly get that energetic column where you can see how far it jumps up above the atmosphere and it breaks into that purplish range. But then if you even go further back in the atmosphere, you can see where the purple line ends and the red starts. Well, let's double that, and that's where the blues are. That's how much intense electrical charge is coming in when you're seeing blue auroras. Now, this is my firm belief. And then Lee Wheelbarger also alluded to this in our conversation, is very firm on this. Our atmosphere is going to become so electrically charged that every solar storm coming in is going to be looking something more on this color spectrum and pushing further south. This is definitely going to affect our weather more and more. And with the electrical charge, we're going to start to see skies like this every single weather front coming through. And when you start to see this every weather front, you're going to understand why the ancients built all of these dolmens to run underground and hide during these events. I mean, they were literally getting away from plasma discharges onto our planet. It's not just a single location or a few locations around Europe. You find these by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, across the planet. Northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, wherever you go. Which ones have not been destroyed or broken up to move out of the way for roadways? There were millions of these on our planet, and you need to ask yourself why. Going back into the petroglyphs and different stelae and stone carvings that were left for us as markers, you start to see the replication of plasma discharge that is mimicked in a lab, and then you'll start to understand what they were putting in their petroglyphs on the rocks. They witnessed this in the skies. These are lab experiments. What they witnessed was at such a large scale that it was visible in our skies. And it was a global event because all cultures across the northern, southern hemispheres, different continents, they all have the same shape array. Something like this in our skies is just around the corner. So when you see it, understand what it is. Don't come at it from fear. You need to understand it's electrical charge, it's plasma discharge. This is what they were talking about, the gods from the heavens. The stories of the dragons. When you start to see the chaos serpent dragon, you understand the legends that this is what it is. Look at that tail. That's an electrical discharge. Actually, in the past, it was so intense that it went from planet to planet, and they could see it in the skies. We haven't seen anything like this before, but it's about to uptick in the charge of our Earth as our sun decreases into this grand solar minimum and it goes into its low state. Our solar wind pressure is decreasing so fast that we're almost going to be at the 0 point by 2024 with no solar wind. The amount of energetic particles entering our atmosphere from cosmic rays as well as any solar storms, nothing's going to block it. It's going to be 100% penetration rate, and you will start to see these plasma events all through the skies. And if this is the first time you've heard of any of this about plasma or discharge from star to star, from planet to planet, or Birkeland currents, check out a couple of these videos here along with some references. Symbols of an Alien Sky, Thunderbolts YouTube channel. They explain the electric universe and how plasma moves through the interstellar medium, and it is what creates our existence and what holds everything together. There's even some documentaries that you can check out. The Symbols of an Alien Sky, highly suggested. It'll show some of the topography from plasma discharge onto the Earth's surface, and you can start to see what we're going to repeat right about now. A full cycle This is what so many ancient cultures were pegging this date around the year 2000 for. Nearly every ancient culture on the planet talked about a huge shift in not only human consciousness, but our existence and our societies around this time. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. And this is how important I think it is. Many Ice Age conversations, the discussion I had with Lee Wheelbarger, it explains everything in such great detail about what's about to unfold and how you can prepare, the signs to look for, and how you know the intensity is ramping up. This way you can explain it to other people. There's going to be a lot of scared people in a very few years asking what's going on. And our crop losses are going to be here late 2018 and 19, all brought upon by these short wavelength, supercharged, heavy wind, heavy electrical fronts that's going to be the new norm that's going to roll through. How are we going to protect our crops? The only thing currently I can think of other than brick or stone structures, our greenhouses aren't going to last very much longer. The amount of hail coming down and the supercharged winds that are going to be blowing across the planet at 100 miles per hour plus, geodesic domes. These things can withstand hurricane force winds. A snap together kit from foodforliberty.com. You're going to have to put some ventilation in there. They come in different sizes depending on how much vegetation you want to grow. This is some early morning dew on one that's installed in Canada. Food for Liberty also offers heirloom seed kits. This is what's included inside. There's enough for a couple of acres. You can visit them at foodforliberty.com/adapt2030. And I'm sure your mind's full already, so I'm going to let you go off and do some of your own research. All the links are below in the description box. And I wish you all the best of luck.